Hey, welcome to the second course video for the song Hope by NF from his 2023 album, Hope. I'm musically malnourished, and you're on my journey to go deep and wide in discovering new music and artists. In these videos, we do a deep dive into the lyrics and meaning behind the music. So let's get in, see what's going on with Hope. Okay. There is a long section here, kind of an about section, but it pretty much just details the music video. I did watch the music video along with a live performance of Hope, supposedly the first time he performed it. And we watched Tommy Profit, the producer, his breakdown of how he created the song. Those videos are all in one over on Patreon. So I'm not going to really dive in too much here, since again, it's just kind of describing the music video. And then linking the other videos. So we'll just go ahead and get into it. Okay, Hope. Yeah, I'm on my way. I'm coming. So obviously he lets us know right off the bat. And the music video, you know, he is much like the cover art, just on this raft out in the middle of the ocean and then lands on an island. And he has the map to search for hope. Don't lose faith in me. I know you've been waiting. I know you've been praying for my soul. Hope. 30 years you've been dragging your feet, telling me I'm the reason we're stagnant. Now, this is him addressing the darker side of himself, the fear, the anger, the insecurities, all that. 30 years you've been claiming you're honest and promising progress. Well, where's it at? I don't want you to feel like a failure. I know this hurts, but I gave you your chance to deliver. Now it's my turn, like the renewed side of him, the side of him that's wearing all white. Don't get me wrong, Nate, you had a great run, but it's time to give the people something different. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce my album. And I love this section because it is just a number of different voices, like his normal voice and then dark voice, and all these different iterations of the dark voice, and they're warring back and forth because he's built other albums before talking about from the perspective of fear saying to him, like, where would you be without me? What do you mean you want to get rid of me? I wrote this album. I built this thing. Everything you have was because of me. And so you can even see here of Nate trying to say, like, hey, here's my album, this part of myself. And yet there's all the inner voices that are fighting and saying, no, it's my album. Thought that was really well done. What's my definition of success? Listening to what your heart says, standing up for what you know is right while everybody else is tucking their tail between their legs. So being a person of honor, doing what you know is right, being true to yourself. What's my definition of success? Creating something no one else can, being brave enough to dream big, grinding when you're told to just quit, giving more when you got nothing left. So again, all these definitions of success, which I think these are all powerful. It's a person that'll take a chance on something they were told could never happen. It's a person that can see the bright side through the dark times when there ain't one. It's when someone who ain't never had nothing, I love this, ain't afraid to walk away from more profit because they'd rather do something that they really love and take the pay cut. The reason I think this is important, the way he sets it up, is he's saying a person who never had nothing. Because it's kind of like you get wooed by the success, by the financial security, and it's like that side of you that I never want to go back to that. I never want to be poor again. I never, whatever. And so because of your fear of becoming that again, you let it drive your present and you make decisions that may not be the decisions that are true to yourself. Like he's saying that he'd rather do something and take a pay cut, but like he knows that's the right thing to do. And so I just think that's powerful because it does kind of set up this idea that there is a temptation to not lose what you have. So therefore you bend to other people's desires. You become somebody who's trying to just please people versus doing what you know is right, and continuing to take risks. It's a person that would never waver, or change who they are just to gain some credibility. So same thing, just reinforces that idea. So they could feel accepted by a stranger. It's a person that can take the failures in their life and turn them into motivation. It's believing in yourself when no one else does. It's amazing what a little bit of faith can do if you don't believe in you. Why would you think or expect anybody else that's around you to? I did things that I regret. I done said things I can't take back. Was a lost soul at a crossroad who had no hope, but I changed that. I spent years of my life holding on to things I never should have kept, full of hatred. Years of my life carrying a lot of baggage I should have walked away from. Years of my life wishing I was someone different, looking for some validation. Years of my life trying to fill the void, pretending I was in. They get it. Verse 2. Growing pains a necessary evil. Difficult to go through, yes, but beneficial. Some would say having a mental breakdown is a negative thing, which on one hand I agree with. On the other hand, it was the push I needed. This is what I love about usually the wisdom that NF brings to his lyrics. When I'm generally explaining something, I like to try to speak to both sides, to give this well-rounded understanding of whatever it is that we're discussing, because we are all different and we go through different things and experience things differently, even if there are some core things that we share. Like in one way, grief is grief, but it is also dependent on who was the person, what were the circumstances leading up to possibly a loss, where are you currently at in your life? Like, are you kind of on the edge already? Or were you feeling very secure and strong? What age were you? I mean, there's just so many different things that do give these different flavors to even the common difficulties that we all walk through. And so even in him saying this, is he says some would say having a mental breakdown is a negative thing. He's not necessarily saying, yeah, I think everybody should have a mental breakdown, or I wish I had a mental breakdown. All he's recognizing is that probably if he could change it and be better, he would say, well, yeah, of course I would rather have just like been better and not gone through that. But he's recognizing I did go through that and it woke me up. It produced something in me. So I just love the mature way in which he speaks about it, because I think that's important. It's the same idea as like if you stole something, but you learned a lesson and you never stole again and you were generous for the rest of your life. Like, of course, that thing that you did set you on a different course, but is that saying the stealing was necessary, the harm to another person was necessary, whatever it might be? Well, no, but it happened. And now you can learn from it. So I just think that's a really mature way to look at that. I'd have never hit rock bottom. Would I be the person that I am today? I don't believe so. I'm a prime example of what happens when you choose to not accept defeat and face your demons. Took me 30 years to realize that if you want to get that opportunity to be the greatest version of yourself, sometimes you got to be someone you're not, to hear the voice of reason. Having kids will make you really take a step back and look in the mirror. At least for me, that's what it did. I wake up every day and pick my son up, holding him in my arms and let him know he's loved. Standing by the window, questioning if dad is ever going to show up. Isn't something he's going to have to worry about. Don't get it twisted. That wasn't a shot, Mama. I forgive you. I just don't want him to grow up thinking that he'll never be enough. And then we get into this. 30 years of running, 30 years of searching, 30 years of hurting, 30 years of pain, 30 years of fearful, 30 years of anger, 30 years of empty, 30 years of shame, 30 years of broken, 30 years of anguish, 30 years of hopeless, 30 years of hey, 30 years of never, 30 years of maybe, 30 years of later, 30 years of fake, 30 years of hollow, 30 years of sorrow, 30 years of darkness, 30 years of Nate. And in the music video, it was interesting because it was going back and forth on those lines. Hey, Nate, wait. It was switching back to this kind of part of himself where he was wearing all white, but the black was infecting him. It was almost like it was pushing through that dark side of him. All right, I'm going to stop saying all the 30 years because it's probably annoying, but you can see it. All of these things he's just laying out. You'll never evolve. And this is where they get in the conversation back and forth between the two of them. So the dark side of him, fear, you'll never evolve. Nate says, I know I can change. Fear says, we're not enough. He says, we are not the same. Fear says, you don't have the heart. Nate says, you don't have the strength. Fear says, you don't have the will. Nate says, you don't have the faith. Fear says, you'll never be loved. You'll never be safe. Might as well give up. And Nate says, not running away. Fear says, you don't have the guts. Nate says, you're the one afraid. Fear says, I'm the one in charge. Nate says, I'm taking and then fear tries to say no. And he says, I'm taking the reins. That was such a powerful part of the music video, man. I just had chills. And it's very indicative of the inner dialogue that goes on within us as well, right? The lies. And from a spiritual perspective, with Nate and with myself from a Christian perspective, they are lies of the enemy. John 10:10, the thief comes only to steal, kill, and destroy. Jesus says, but I came that you might have life and life more abundant. One of my favorite scriptures in the Bible says that God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power, love, and a sound mind. And I never want to take that sound mind for granted because we are fragile people. And sometimes it feels like you're just one step away from kind of losing it, like losing your footing. And you can easily begin to go into this spiral that's destructive and dark. And so the ability to rest on God's grace and his promises and to hold that sound mind. It's like any day that you can feel like, okay, like I feel like I'm thinking about this pretty well, or you just feel yourself moving off in a bad direction, man. It's just like God's grace to like stay in that neutral place, to be able to make wise decisions, to be able to make the most of each day, to be able to be there for your family and those that you love and show up, and perform well at whatever job that you have and pursue your dreams and goals. It is a constant battle of just lies of the enemy that are easy for you to get trapped in and put back in that cage, but you hold the keys. And I guess a better way of saying like Christ holds the keys for us and has rescued us from that. And some days it feels like you're like back in that prison, but it's not a place that you want to live. And anyways, just the idea of that dialogue is very real to the things that we experience and go through and the way we can speak to ourselves. And, but I just loved how he was fighting and counteracting what he's saying. So, man, powerful start to this album. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments. Thanks for hanging out with me for this one. I hope to see you in the next one, because reading good.